Hello. So self-reflection and continuous improvement as part of building successful professional relationships. At the beginning, I think it was chapter 3, we spoke about assessment and um, just gauging where you are as an individual in terms of your professional relationships and the things you might need to work on. So this is now the other side of it. We're saying now we've gone through a lot of information, a lot of things that we can do, practical steps. In the next module, we're going to look at how to apply some of these things a bit further. And we've gone through that. And now what this chapter is talking about is how can we look at ourselves, the importance of self-reflection in interpersonal development. You know, it's not just about the other person. It's not about the other. It is also about that in building professional relationships, but it is sometimes also about us. A lot of times also about us. There's also the shared responsibility, if you like. What has gone well with my colleagues? That's a very good question that we don't seem to ask. We're always talking about what's wrong and what has not actually happened properly. But ask yourself sometimes what has gone well with your colleagues? What has happened in the last 6 months, 1 year that you've benefited from? What have you learned? What have they taught you? What have you taught someone else? How have you supported one another? And what has gone well with your peers or your industry colleagues, with people within the industry? What has happened? What has gone on with that? What are the trends or the what are the happenings that are going on within the industry? And are you interacting with people on that basis and asking questions to that extent? Um, and that's important. It's very important because you need to sort of be in touch with that to enable you do the assessment at the top of the course quite well. You need to have an idea of how things are progressing, and that's part of self-reflection and continuous improvement. So techniques for soliciting and incorporating feedback. So there are times when we reach out to people and things don't work out, or we're within the team and we're looking at trying to do things and it's not working properly, or we get to end of the period, maybe 6 months or 1 year, where there's a regular annual reviews and so on. And there are a few techniques that one can use throughout the year, not wait until the annual review to figure out how things are working. Doesn't matter who you are, if you're a senior in the organization or if you're a junior or just started, it doesn't really matter. There are these techniques that you can use. Number one is experimentation. Experimentation gives you an idea of how people think, how they're able to incorporate many things that they already know, how they're able to achieve things within the space of time or the particular time you've allotted. And you can do that in a way that is not costly to the organization or doesn't impede any major thing. Then you have to try to create. Now, remember, we're talking about techniques for soliciting and incorporating feedback. One of the things you have to create is a no blame culture, no blame environment. You have to make people comfortable to raise issues without blaming the individual or any individual and get those issues. Remember, we looked at in a couple of modules ago, we talked about problem solving group settings and decision making group settings. This facilitates that experimentation and no blame culture and encouraging openness and a rewarding environment, acting on feedback. All those things facilitate good decision making in a group setting. You have to encourage openness for people to come forward and speak about things they care about the work in particular that affect them or that affect other team members, or how can the work can be done better, or lack of clarity of objectives, or lack of clarity of messaging or what they're trying to get done. You need to appreciate that and allow people to be open. They could learn from others, or it could be corrected. It could be a very important point that saves the team, the organization, or the business. And you have to reward people, make it a rewarding environment for the work they're putting in. People say they're being paid for it, yes, but you have to recognize when people are actually making an effort to keep the team, to keep the business going. And then you also have to act on feedback. So we've asked people to be open about things. We've asked if there's no blame culture and they provided feedback. but then we now need to act on that feedback and make sure that that feedback is something that we can communicate to people. Also, one more technique of incorporating feedback is setting personal goals for ongoing growth and development. So, or self-reflection and continuous development. We need to set personal goals. At the beginning, we spoke about assessing where you were, on understanding your own situation or perspective relating to professional relationships or interactions, and setting personal goals and ongoing growth and development mean that you can actually say in 6 months' time, I want to have held one webinar, attended 3 webinars relating to this topic, or I want to have been to an industry event, or I want to have done a training session for my colleagues in my team, or internal clients within the organization. So there you can set those personal goals that don't necessarily need to be within your official annual plan or something of that nature, and then you can ask people for feedback as you do these things. Remember, experimentation, no blame culture, encourage openness, and so on. Action planning, implementing strategies for improvement. So as you do these things, you have to measure them and understand where you are. Not so you blame yourself or blame someone else, but you can have an idea of the true state that you've got to in building professional relationships, in working with others, in improving certain aspects like communication, effective communication, or listening better, providing feedback, improving various aspects, and plan accordingly in practical ways to get that done. So self-reflection and continuous improvement is vital, and it's it gives a very great outcome in developing professional relationships. Because people will know when you do this, it actually shows, it's reflected, it's demonstrated in the work you do, it's demonstrated in how you interact with people. And there'll be times people say, yeah, talk to that person because they know X, Y, Z, and then they can explain it because you improve communication and so on. And then people start talking about you in glowing terms because you've done the work and you self-reflected and you continually try to improve on your work and your role and what you're doing, and people begin to trust you and rely on your opinion in getting their own work done, or in general in the organization. See you in the next module.